New York Giants fans, let the takes fly. They are all over the place. You have giant opinions out here about what the Giants should be doing, about the draft, about the coaches, about the GM, about the players. You have giant thoughts on what players are saying, what they're not saying, what they think they should do. I picked out a few that I find interesting, and I'm here to talk about it. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemons, New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure that you go over there and check everything out. And we are closer and closer and closer. We are, I want to say, less than 20 subscribers away from 2,000. Hey, I'm looking at the analytics. It says 54% of the people who look at this podcast are people who are not subscribed to the YouTube channel. I'm not telling you what to do. Well, I kind of am. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so that anytime I drop a new video, anytime I drop a new giant issue, you are right there, right? I want you to be right there with me to check it out, to leave a comment, some great comments. People who are passionate, but people who understand that, hey, I'm not just trying to have groupthink out here. I want us to think differently. And with that, there's been a lot of opinions, a lot of things said, especially since the New York Giants won the game last week. All of the narratives have changed, right? Like before it was this team is an embarrassment. They can't win games, and then they won a game. And then it was this team is an embarrassment. I can't believe they won a game. So you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. But there's been some people saying things, and I wanted to get an opportunity to talk about it. So I got a few clips that I want y'all to listen to today. This first one comes from our guy Boomer Esiason, right? Who was talking about the quarterback position and his thoughts on it.
As I was looking over the list of quarterbacks, let's face it, they're not trading up to get somebody and giving up half their draft in next year's first round. I would not do that. No, not for any of these guys. I mean, like I think that they can play in the league. I just don't think that they're worth these high picks. No matter how desperate you are for a quarterback, go out and find somebody else. Go out and find a Carson Wentz. Go out and find a Kirk Cousins. Go find somebody that's going to be cheap and is going to be a stopgap and worry about next year or the year after that. I don't see anybody on this board right now that is worth like what it would take to go up and get them, because people value that first or second overall pick because they feel like they need to fill a void at the most important position. And I know that there are guys that now, as we get ready to transition into the phase where we start evaluating and the NFL starts evaluating these players, I don't necessarily feel like there's an explosive player in the draft that is going to be a difference maker within the next 2 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Boomer Esiason, who pretty clearly let you guys know that he's not here for any of those conversations to be had about who should or should not be a top pick. He said with no ambiguity that he would not use a high pick on either one of the guys. And let's be real about it. We're talking about two guys. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And Boomer Esiason, a quarterback, is saying that he would not spend that type of draft capital on those quarterbacks. I think this is very interesting. Did you guys know that Boomer Esiason was the 38th overall pick? Boomer Esiason was not a first-round draft pick. In fact, many people were surprised that year there were no quarterbacks taken in the first round. And Boomer Esiason was the first quarterback taken in that draft, and it was in the second round, the 38th pick. Many people, Boomer, would say that you were somebody that was overlooked, that you were somebody that was doubted, that you were somebody that people didn't believe in, the same way that you don't necessarily believe in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Besides, for Boomer Esiason, what was his greatest trait? Right? Like, what was he so good at that everyone had to have him early? People said nothing. And so nobody took him with the first round. And now this is a Boomer Esiason that went on to have a fantastic career playing for the Bengals. Somebody that in hindsight, you would have 100% turned over some draft capital to get up to the top of the draft in order to take him. In that draft class, they took a wide receiver number 1 overall, I believe Irvin Fryer, right? Like D linemen and offensive tackles and linebackers and everybody known to man, every position known to man went in the first round, but not a quarterback, not somebody who could be a difference maker for a team from the most important position, which it still was back then. And now Boomer Esiason, knowing how important the quarterback position is, wants the New York Giants to go out and get some retreads that are likely to cost you a lot of money, right? You're going to go out and get Kirk Cousins, who couldn't make it through a full season with Atlanta. Now you want to give him more money to come over and play for the Giants? Oh, now you want a Carson Wentz and fire him up again? I think it's so interesting that Boomer Esiason, of all people, decided that this wasn't the year to move everything or to ensure that you get a pick. He was actually on record as saying that he is happy that he thinks that the Giants got lucky that they don't have one of the top 2 picks, because now they don't have to justify taking one of these quarterbacks. He said in the thing that you heard, he said that he didn't see any explosiveness out of these guys after watching the 2 dudes who just lit up college football, the 2 guys who won all of the quarterbacking awards. Those 2 guys are the guys that you don't see anything. How convenient. How interesting. I think it's weird when I hear stuff like that, especially from a guy like Boomer Esiason, who was overlooked, who people didn't believe in. You would think that a guy who made it, who should not have been overlooked, who should have 100% have been a first round draft pick, if not a number 1 overall draft pick, you would think that that person would have the most sympathy, empathy, whatever you want to have for these quarterbacks and what they're dealing with. You would think that that guy would understand how much value it is on getting a quarterback, right? When they're staring you in the face. Not, hey, we'll get a stopgap guy and kick the can down the road for another season. I'm surprised at Boomer. Like, I'm not mad at him, right? I'm not mad, but I'm surprised. I'm surprised that this is his take. I wonder if he felt that way last year. I don't remember a take like this last year. I've been covering the Giants for several years now, for several seasons. I don't remember him having a take like this last year. I wonder if his take would be like this next year, right? When the draft class is going to look very different. It won't be better unless one of these guys that have decided to come back make a astronomical jump in play, right? If Quinn Ewers comes back, is he going to all of a sudden be better than Cam Ward was this year? No. Better than Shedeur was this year? No. They've been trying to push Nussmeier at us all season. No, probably not. Cade Klubnik has been the wonderkin forever. He still hasn't figured it out. He's coming back for another year. Nah, he's still not going to be it. Lenora Sellers, possibly, but you know what'll happen to Lenora Sellers? They're going to treat Lenora Sellers the same way they treat Jalen Milroe. They're going to love him. He's going to have one bad game, then they're going to trash him. Then they're going to love him. He's going to have one bad game, and then they're going to trash him. And then they're going to say, oh, well, yeah, he's big and super athletic and all this, but you can't just look at the measurables. You have to, they'll move the goalposts. The goalposts that they held steady for Josh Allen, they'll move them for Lenora Sellers like they're moving them for Jalen Milroe. I'm surprised by a guy who was doubted, by a guy who was overlooked in the first round, to just sweep these guys under the rug as nothing more than good players who might someday be good. Hey, I hate to break the news to you, Boomer, who should know this because you've been a football player for a long time. You've covered football for a long time. These two guys at the top of the draft, and even if you add in Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe's played 2 seasons, but Jackson Dart, to a lesser extent than these two, but Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward have played a lot of football. And who are the players who are having the most success in the NFL when they transition? It's the guys who played a lot of football. Bo Nix played a lot of college football, right? A lot. Jaden Daniels played a lot of college football. That's why they're having success, because they understand the game. These two dudes have played a lot of college football, and they're still young. They're still young, and they played a lot of college football. Shedeur Sanders has played 4 true seasons of college football. He's not a 5th-year senior. He's not a 6th-year senior. He is a true 4-year college football. He started ever since he was a true freshman. And yet, these are the guys that you're like, nobody will be good for the next couple of years. Really? Come on, Boomer. I can't believe you're going there as well. Another person that had some very interesting things to say, funny enough, about the quarterback position, Tiki Barber. Tiki Barber, a Giants great, just had some interesting things to say. And I wanted you all to hear it.
Everybody wants the quarterback. That's all I keep hearing.
Yeah.
We need Shedeur Sanders. We need Cam Ward. We got to get a quarterback. We got to get a quarterback. We got to get a quarterback. Well, I'm telling you, because I've seen it. And by the way, all of you have seen it as well. If you put a quarterback in a crappy situation, a terrible coaching, team, depth, whatever situation, they are going to fail. When you put young quarterbacks in bad situations, good things don't happen. The Giants have to have a good situation to put whoever that next quarterback is in. So stop obsessing about the quarterback, because even if he's the greatest thing in the world and you put him in a terrible situation, he is going to fail, period.
So if I'm understanding this right, Tiki Barber believes that the reason that you don't get a quarterback is because if you put them in a bad situation, they're not going to succeed. And I asked this question, and I'm being sincere. What's bad about this situation? Like, what's bad about the situation? The only issue that Giants fans have with the Giants is the losing. And most of the issue that they have with the losing comes from the inability to play consistently good by the quarterback. So if you get a guy who can come in and play consistently good, or let's bring the bar down, who can be average to consistently good, what's the bad situation? it's not as if it's a toxic locker room. Everybody in the locker room seems to be on one accord. It's not as if there's a rocky relationship between the head coach and the players. The players are coming out on their own without provocation. Some guys that don't have any reason to support him whatsoever to support Brian Dable. Some of you are talking about the bad situation, and I'm like, well, what's the bad situation? Is it the bad draft picks? Okay. How does that affect the quarterback? It doesn't. Like, what's the bad situation? Is it the pass blocking? You mean the same pass blocking that we just saw this past week without the all-pro starting left tackle that was able to keep the Indianapolis Colts from getting any sacks? They were without the all-pro left tackle. They were without their high-price left guard that they brought in. They were out their second-round draft pick center. They had a backup guard in who played at an FCS school last year. They had a journeyman in at guard, and they had the backup guard that then became the starting right guard that is also the backup center playing center. And then they had a right tackle who everybody says is so awful he should not be on the team, or they should move him to guard. That's who was playing right tackle. And yet they still went to work, and the quarterback did what? Got the ball out of his hands quickly, let the playmakers make plays. I think it's interesting when Tiki Barber says you can't bring a quarterback into a bad situation, but does not articulate what's bad about this situation. Like what is it? Is it that he doesn't have weapons? Nope. Darius Slayton before this year, a 1,000-yard receiver without getting anywhere near the amount of targets that Malik Neighbors got this year. Malik Neighbors is a 100-reception, 1,000-yard receiver this year. Wan'Dale Robinson having the best year of his career as a slot guy. Tyrone Tracy doing admirable work, has 1,000 scrimmage yards. I'm not really impressed by 1,000 scrimmage yards because of 17 games, right? But I am impressed by the fact that if he had been given the opportunity to perform like a starting running back from start to end, I think he would have had probably 1,100, maybe even 1,200 yards rushing. And that's a good season. 1,200 yards is the line of demarcation now. It's not 1,000 anymore. It's 1,200. And somebody might say, well, man, how did you jump past 1,100 when it was 1,000 with 16 games? It was never 1,000 for 16 games for me. I always thought that was a super low bar. It was 1,100 with 16 games for me. So now it's 1,200. It's amazing that Tiki Barber would say this and not articulate the reasons why it's toxic or why it's not good or why it's not stable. The only thing you can point to on the reason why you wouldn't want to bring in a quarterback into this situation is because you don't know if the head coach and the GM are going to be around. But guess what? If you allow the head coach and the GM to draft a quarterback, then you have to give them the opportunity. You have to give them the opportunity to see things out for a couple years with that quarterback. Or else you're the Chicago Bears. I keep listening to people say that the Giants are the worst team in the NFL. And I'm like, y'all do see Chicago, right? The Chicago Bears are bad. You do see Cleveland, right? The Cleveland Browns are bad. You do see New Orleans, right? The New Orleans Saints are bad. The New England Patriots are bad. The same team, by the way, in the New England Patriots that drafted a quarterback that most of the people who cover the Giants wanted, right? Because most of them did not want Most of them did not want Jaden Daniels. I was in the minority of people who cover the Giants, who are into the Giants, who really wanted Jaden Daniels. Most everybody wanted Drake May. What has New England done with Drake May? Oh, let me guess. It's not Drake May's fault at all. It's not Drake May's fault at all that he's come in, and since he's come in, they've still been terrible. There's been no improvements, right? It's not Drake May's fault. That's the organization's fault. It's the coaching staff's fault. So I look at these things and go, for as much as people complain about what the Giants are, they're not a dysfunctional organization. They're just not winning, and winning makes everybody lose their mind. They're not winning. People are flying as the Giants were losing 10 straight. People are flying banners, paying thousands of dollars to fly banners across, talking about get rid of this team. They're an embarrassment. They're losing. I can't believe it. You've got people writing letters to the owner about how bad the team is. And then they win, and those same people who were complaining about losing are now complaining about the win. Two-faced. That just tells me you just want to complain just to complain. And that's cool. Get your rocks off. But don't tell untruths. This is just not the truth, Tiki Barber. This team is not it's not a dumpster fire. You're not dropping a rookie into a horrible situation. You're dropping a rookie into a team that has invested money in the offensive line, that when they're 100% healthy, we're protecting really well, who, when they're 100% healthy, has another tackle who could possibly move and swing and do other things, who now have a left guard that's proven that he can be a starter in this league, who have a center and a backup center guard who can be starters in this league. They all of a sudden have depth on the offensive line. You are dropping a quarterback into a situation where he has weapons. He has a legitimate number one wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. He's got a legitimate wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in Wan'Dale Robinson. And he has another legitimate wide receiver in Darius Slayton if they ever decided to use him. They have 2 tight ends that they spent draft capital on, one of which we don't get to see play much because for some reason they've just decided to waste what was a really good rookie year with 2 years of him being behind guys that they picked up, one from a trade who then retired and another one from the draft who they're forcing in but doesn't seem to be as ready or polished as the other guy. But they have 2 of them now, 2 6'5 plus, 240, 250 plus tight ends who move pretty well, and all they have to do is continue to get better as blockers. They've got backs. They've got a young guy. They've got 2 other young guys. They got a veteran dude. Tell me how that's dropping a quarterback into a bad situation. The quarterback is the bad situation. So if you drop a better one into that situation, it's no longer bad. It's no longer bad. And like Brian Dable said, he didn't say a good quarterback. He said good quarterback play, which means you don't have to be great. You just have to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. That's what Drew Lock did last game. That's why he had success. That's why the offense had success. And that's what the next guy will be charged with doing. I just don't understand why we're on this, this organization is dysfunctional, when I just don't understand what the dysfunction is. Finally, there's this epic rant on DiPietro and Rothenberg, and I wanted to play it and then give you my thoughts about it as I see it, because I don't know. Sometimes I think people may just miss the point, but I want you to hear it.
It is in the best interest of the New York Football Giants to lose, not to win a meaningless game in Week 18 to go, 4-13? Like, are you kidding me? You can play the game while they're not trying to lose. They're not trying to win. The Philadelphia Eagles are not trying to win. No one's saying the players are going to go out there and drop passes and lose on purpose. That's not the point. But what we are trying to say is simply that the Philadelphia Eagles are allowed to rest their starters because it's all about their future, right? Being healthy for the playoffs. But I could argue the Giants' future is more important on Sunday. We're not talking about 4 weeks for a playoff run. We're maybe talking about the next 8 to 10 years, getting your guy. How'd it work last year when the Giants won 3 games with Tommy DeVito? You don't think they'd be better off right now with Jaden Daniels or Drake May?
Simply stated, like, without trying to be too contrarian, no. I don't think that they would be better off with Jaden Daniels and Drake May right now. First off, let's keep it a buck about what this team would have been able to do, because Jaden Daniels was never on the board. Getting to the 2 seed the number 2 draft pick was not on the board, right? Maybe 3. Those 3 games that Tommy DeVito won, you just wanted them to purposely lose all of those games last year too. They were not eliminated from playoff contention until very late. And anytime you have an opportunity to try to get to the playoffs, that's what you do. You do not forfeit the season that you're in now for the season to come until the season that you're in now is over. Right? It's over. Those games during that 10-game losing streak, those games were not lost on purpose. They were trying to win those games. When they tell you, hey, we lost 5 games by a touchdown or less, they're not telling you that because they're trying to like brag about what they've been able to do. They're not saying that because they want you to feel like they've done something special. They just want you to know they're trying to win. Hey, we're trying to get it done out here, right? We're trying to win. And all we ever ask out of our teams is to try. At least that's what we should be doing. We should be only asking to try. And yet the people are saying they don't try. So here's a good one. When is the time you're supposed to tank? Is it only when you know that the number 1 overall pick is in sight? And if so, when does that start? If I come out the gate 5-5, and now I have 7 games left, but we're in position for the number 1 overall pick, do I just start tanking games? Hey, we need to lose these last 7 games, right? We need to lose these last 7 games. Oh no, that's extreme. 5-5, right? What if I am 2-8? What if I'm 2-8 and now I'm sitting looking, right? I'm sitting and looking out at the landscape going, hey, we're trying to lose these next 7 games. But if we were to win these 7 games, we could put ourselves in position to fight for a playoff berth. But we're not even going to try to win these last 7 games. We're just going to lose them so that we can be better off. What kind of sense does that make? Hey, here's what happens when you win. When you win, you get the opportunity to make the decisions to rest your players because you've got nothing to play for. You've got nothing to play for. If you're talking about that being the same as being so bad that now we just want to like lose on purpose or put our team in position to lose on purpose by sitting our starters, right? Then what message does that send? Why didn't, because now people are going to say, well, why didn't you do this every week? And my answer is, my response is every week until when? When is it okay to start tanking? Do you have to wait until you're mathematically eliminated from playoff contention? Or do you have to wait until the season is just bad and the morale is bad? There's no legitimate place because you might not get eliminated from playoff contention until mad late. Newsflash, it was going to be a difficult thing for the Giants to get the #1 overall pick anyway. If the Giants lost last week, and then because Philadelphia's resting all of their starters, they win this week, the Giants would be in the exact same position that they are in right now. On the outside, looking in at a first overall pick, at a second overall pick. If you just switch the weeks and the Giants lose last week and then come out and win this week versus Philadelphia, they are likely going to be tied at 3 losses tied at 3 losses with other teams who have 3 losses who have the tiebreakers that gives them the higher seeds. The higher draft picks. That's why the Giants are not in first place right now for the draft pick. Because every single person that was in line for that #1 draft pick, they all had the tiebreakers over the Giants. It wasn't until everybody had one more win than the Giants that the Giants were sitting in first place. And now that there are multiple people who have multiple teams that have the same record as the Giants, they're not in the position. So when is it okay to start tanking then? When is it okay to lose on purpose? And to what extent do you lose on purpose? Because by what DiPietro and Rodney are saying, they should have just been resting their starters for the past 7 weeks or for the past 5 weeks to ensure that they didn't win a game. They were still trying to roll out some of their best. Why? Because they weren't trying to lose. Right? That's what. Now, I've been on here saying that the fix has been in because guess what? I believe they were trying to lose. And I believe last week they were trying to lose. They just happened to get the quarterback to play really well. And by really well, I mean he got the ball out of his hands fast into dudes who had space to run. He didn't do anything spectacular. He didn't do anything phenomenal. He just operated the offense the way in which the offense was supposed to be operated all year. What are we doing? You know what? Whether they win or whether they don't win doesn't matter. Here's what has to happen. They have to go in and they have to find whatever strategy they feel is going to make this team competitive next year. Because you can't tank 2 seasons in a row. Right? And now they've been bad 2 seasons. So you can't slap a 3rd season of bad on the table. So whatever they do, it has to be in order to ascend towards winning. And not just winning, but getting to the playoffs, which I know it sounds crazy, is not that far off. It's not that far off. But over here quibbling over whether or not you should tank or sit your starters or what, it's silly. It's really silly. At the end of the day, what people should be doing is trying to enjoy the product. And once you can enjoy the product because of what's happening on the field, not because of the way you feel about the things that are happening behind closed doors, but because of what's happening on the field, when you can enjoy the product, that's when you should start doing something different. That's all the time I have. New York Giants on SI. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information from. Make sure that you go there. Make sure that you go hit the subscribe button. Subscribe. We're almost at 2,000. Until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.